online and gender economics online. Woo! And so let's start here. Let's start in the offline world, because the online world came second after the offline world. And what every man in this room knows, but probably most women didn't know, is that women globally are only about 50% of the population, but they control 70% of consumer dollars spent worldwide. And in the US, that's much more skewed towards women. They're about 51% of the population, but they control or influence 85% of all purchasing decisions. And in the US, this is structurally rising for two main reasons, which is to say women are becoming more powerful in the spending equation offline, because A, according to, when the census went out, when the government went out in 2010 and asked the question of mothers, do you have a husband? 41% of all women said, no, I don't have a husband living in the home. When you push below that data, there is a man in the home, but she didn't bother to marry him. And if you get younger women under 34 years old, 51% of them are raising children with no husband in the home. And of those younger women, 44% thinks marriage is obsolete, whether it's because of custody battles or because they can support their own children. They don't think they need to take the title of wife. And so as a result, that issue of influence or control is moving towards women, because in those households, that woman controls 100% of the purchasing decisions for her and all of her kids, all the health care, all the education, all the apparel, all the kids' activities. So even though it's at 85%, it continues to climb. Let's talk about the workforce also. 60% of women are now in the workforce, and if we look at only those with kids, 74% of them are full-time. So those are, again, paychecks which are largely being designated by women. All right, so that's the context in which we operate. We now have the online world, so let's take a look at some of those statistics in the online world. Women are driving the 4 biggest usage trends on the internet today, and as we were talking about at my table just before I came up to speak, I think the seduction of great data is that it is, you really want to drive niche views, and I think this is a big picture view that some people miss, that what's happening on the internet today is pretty dramatic secular shifts in usage, and women are driving every one of the top 4. They're driving the rise of daily deals. Remember the Groupon deal and all of the knockoffs for Groupon, all those daily deals? We're going to do some data later globally, but women are driving that trend. They're driving casual games. How many of you guys play Words with Friends or Hanging with Friends or, gosh, what else? I don't know. I have 10 games going. Very good. I have 10 games going right now, and I love them all. And women are the primary users of these casual games, and I just do it mostly to hit the comment button and trash talk with my friends. I don't really care about the words or who wins. I don't really care about that either. I just like chatting with my girlfriends. E-commerce and social, we're going to talk about those two at more length because those have the biggest economic upsides related to them. So this chart is something that was done over a year between 2009 and 10. What you can see is that social networks grew about 7% in usage, taking most away from email, and online games are growing about a percentage point. Both of these skew women. Movies is men, up about 0.5%. Search is 50-50. No changes here. And then instant messaging, some of these other communications, and portals falling in relevance. But look at the big number in social games and online. So we've got 35% of total usage, basically in those top 2 categories, all driven by women. Facebook is 75% women, Zenga's 70% women. Pinterest, 80% women users. Top 3 sites. Okay, let's talk about where are women versus men on the web. This is something that came out of TNS in February of last year. So the first thing you notice right away is look at the social numbers, right? So women do 5 hours a week, I guess, 5 hours a week. Men are 4.4 hours a week. And then when you get over here to e-commerce sites, shopping, we're at 2.2 versus 1.9. And so we're going to do a little more work on these 2 categories. What's interesting here that this chart doesn't tell you about women versus men is women view fewer sites, and they're more engaged in the sites they visit. So if you look at this, you'd say, oh, that's not big a difference, Laura. You know, it's only a 10% difference. The difference is women are spending their time on half as many sites for that 2.2. So if you're one of the sites capturing that 2.2, you're twice as well off, and the woman outspends men 4 to 1 on the web. So it's a really valuable place to be in a woman's shopping, get a woman online in your shopping site, economically. Okay, let's talk about purchasing behavior online. Women spend a lot more time on the web each month than men, and they spend a lot more money. They outspend men 4-to-1. So e-commerce reached $200 billion in 2011, and women represented about 60% of total online purchases. When Nielsen, in late 2010, looked at this data for the US, these are the top 11 online spending categories. So online, what people buy online is clothes, accessories, they buy travel online, they buy books online, they make reservations online, hotels. Look at the women here. Women is blue, men is green. It's almost double. It's almost double for the biggest online shopping category. Travel, a lot more women. Books, ton more women. Airline reservations, ton more. Down here, a little less. Music's about even. Cosmetics, 4-to-1. Auctions, men, you guys love eBay. I don't know what you're buying on auctions. I thought I bought everything at auction, but men love auctions. That's a surprise. Computer hardware, mostly men. So those are your top 10 categories. Women are outspend men by a lot in the 9 of the top 10 categories. Let's talk about rest of world. A year after Nielsen finished that work on the US, ComScore went offshore and looked around the world. 3 key categories. The data isn't quite as good. It's not quite as granular offshore. But on apparel sites globally, and this is going to go to this point of engagement, and women use fewer sites, so they're more valuable if you capture them. Women represented 53% of unique visitors, so pretty much a 50-50 split, but they stayed 33% longer. They stayed 10 minutes versus 8 minutes on apparel sites. On coupon sites, remember the daily deal we started with, this key trend? They're still only about 53%, about half, but they stayed 90% longer. 12 minutes, about the same as apparel. 12 minutes versus 6 minutes. You know, I don't know. Men get there, they look, and they're like, I don't care about any of these things, I'm leaving. Luxury goods, 66% of uniques. Here we see a very definite skew towards women. Look at the time they spend. 26 minutes, double these other 2 categories, and double men's as well. So when we're thinking of, and this is globally, this isn't just rich US consumers, this is globally over the entire world, which is one of the big, you know, I don't know, positives, negatives, I don't know how you want to, one of the big differentiators in the internet compared to old media is it's a global footprint. So we get really statistically, we get very good data, and it's statistically significant because we have so many data points. So I think there's a couple takeaways from these 2 slides about commerce and women online. Beware of unique visitors, because I was going to say length of stay. I was going to call it engagement, but that word, it turns out, has 5 meanings. So length of stay is a more important driver of economics than unique visitors. And then the other takeaway is women are not men. Women spend more money, and they like fewer sites. So if you're trying to make money from doing what you're doing, you want to be one of the sites that women come to. So let's talk about social. So social's taken over the world. 2 of our next 3 presentations in the next room in 90 minutes are going to be about using Facebook to make money and acquire customers. So let's talk a little bit about the rise of social networking globally. So now we're in a global slide again. We're going to do some US, but we're going to start with global. Longer engagement. So this is actually something I learned today. Whenever I think of engagement, I think of length of time. When other people think of engagement, and frankly their definition is probably better than mine, they think of interactivity. When something happens from a brand, who interacts and how many times? That's probably a better metric of engagement, frankly. That is the one that Arianna Huffington, that was her big insight when she redefined what quality content was in news. What she paid her people on was getting people to comment on the blog posts. And so what that does is it took the news and it skewed it more radically, because you were going to get more engagement the way it's defined outside by experts and the way she defined it, because people were mad about what was being said. But she just wanted engagement. She wanted people talking. She didn't want to be middle of the road. So this slide is done on engagement, meaning length of time. But it's a perfectly legitimate, probably better way to call engagement interactivity, talking to your audience. So what did we learn from this? So this is a ComScore 2010 study. Hasn't been updated since. Engagement drives economics more than unique visitors. All the words are fans, super fans, is you have the 80-20 rule, where not only do fans spend 80% of the money, but they also socially, virally drive positive words around your brand. So fans are super valuable. Women spend 30% more time on social networking sites than men, and social networking sites reach more women than men. Look at this number, next number. Women consume 57% of social site pages and were 57% of total minutes in May of 10. And they spent 5 hours in May of 10, which was 40% more time than men who only had 4 hours to spend. Look at the postings. Women's post 10 to 26 times versus 7 to 17. And so this is the ComScore data. This report I have, and if you give me your card, I'll send it to you, is basically line by line. I source every single thing that I'm doing today. I did, half of it. So if you want the sources, it's all in this. I have a physical report that has the sources for every one of these line items. So just give me your card and I'll send it to you electronically. So anyway, so this is looking at globally what's happening on social networks, women versus men, total audience, engagement lengths, hours per day, and how many pages they're consuming. So let's talk about how they use social networks. This is really interesting. Now, this is cutting-edge work, which I think is fascinating. So it's coming out of the US. Almost all of the good social work in academia is coming out of the US, because maybe that's because where our social platforms are starting. And so this is actually really interesting. So what these researchers have found, I think the woman one is from Vanderbilt, is that women really use social networks to make connections and to share their daily lives. They want to learn about real people. Something I didn't put up there, 70% of women are willing to take advice from a number of women they've never set eyes on. They have a problem with their kid, they have a problem with healthcare, and the woman, they say, what should I do? And it doesn't matter if they've ever heard. She says, oh, I had a kid that happened to, and I did this. Women are willing to trust other women's advice, even if they've never met the woman. And then women are really looking to solve real-life problems online. That's why they use social networks. That whole notion of community and sharing and making your life better by interacting and getting advice. And so women are most likely to be found on Pinterest, which, as I said, 80% women, MySpace, Facebook's 57%, Twitter 57%, Flickr 55%. All those sites are dominated by women. Men. This was actually very funny. I think this work came out of somewhere in South Carolina, I think. But anyway, a woman, most women, it's also academics that are women that are doing most of the cutting edge work on social networks as well and how they're used differently. Men really, really like to put up photos of themselves reaching the top of a mountaintop, achieving something. They just did a race car and they won. Whenever they win something, or their girlfriend takes a picture of them, and they post it on Facebook. Very accomplishment-oriented and trying to kind of boost their hierarchy among their friends and associates. And there's been a lot of work done bringing this back to how survival of the fittest between men and women was determined, and how this is now coming out in the social networks and how men and women use social networks. Men are most likely to be found on Hulu, Dig, LinkedIn, and twice as often as Foursquare and Godzilla, those location-based things that use your battery. Men love those location-based sites, apps. Okay, so this was actually interesting. This is some academic work that really engaged me. Many of you have probably heard of the Dunbar Number, but this was a British anthropologist who postulated in the early 90s that the size of your social network was a human being. Social network was gated by the size of their brain, and that you couldn't really have a social network of more than 150 people because the brain couldn't handle it. It became too chaotic. So then the question is, a lot of these girls, a lot of these people on Facebook have 400 friends, 800 friends. So what does that mean? Does that disprove the Dunbar number? And so they went in, and Facebook actually went in and looked. And this is the data that we were talking a little bit about on stage today. The average number of friends on a social network is 120. So while we all hear about my kid, I have a 15-year-old girl. She has 420 friends. Obviously, she's not average, it turns out. The average, and then that's the other thing. The way the Dunbar number works, it has to be people you interact with that are friend, because it was the old world number, it has to be somebody you talk to. Turns out, the average woman will consistently respond to postings of only 10 and 7 for a man, and a woman reaches out only specifically over social network to 6, men at 4. So the point of that is, and here's the last point, the more active your online dialogue, the smaller the number of people get. So it goes down from this 10 and 6, smaller. So what that means is, not only has the Dunbar number been, I would say, supported, but it's actually much smaller. Even with these social networks of 400, it's It's almost like channels on the TV dial. The average household watches 12 a month out of the 200. And this is what we're showing on social networks, that the average is 120 and you interact with less than a dozen. So the online world does appear to mirror the offline world, and women are indeed more social than men, right? That was one of the key findings we can get from the data, that women really do connect on a deep level with almost twice as many people with men, probably because they use the sites for different things, different things. Okay, so how do we make money? So this is it's one of my 2 conclusion slides. So in making money, what we need to think about, this is a BCG study. I can't remember what year it was from. So if they spend 70 to 85% of the money, you have to say to yourself, what do they want? What do women want? And the first thing they want is time-saving solutions, because as you know, women are multitaskers. You know, so the average 12-year-old today does his homework and her homework in front of the computer screen while with the TV on in the background while chatting with 4 friends. Like multitasker. But you know what? That's what women are too. So they really want time-saving solutions. They really want to develop a community. They love connecting with people, even if they don't know them, and they've now got a global footprint with which they can connect with people. They want a work-life balance, and they really want to be able to try to have it all. And online, they feel like they can do that more. They love bargains. Almost every woman you ask will consider herself a bargain hunter, which is why the couponing sites do so well. And they really want control of spending money wisely. Women are becoming wealthier, and they want really good advice about how to save money, how to pay for their kids' education, how they should pay for themselves in their old age as social safety nets fall apart. So, broader implications for women. Again, we're at the BCG study here, you can see. But essentially, because women are more likely to rely on other women and the internet gives them global scale, women can find people like themselves with similar problems over the internet across boundaries of wealth, class, time, gender, geography, religion, and culture. So women are using the internet in the way that it is most powerful because they're reaching out to other women across the globe to get their needs met. Those connection needs, knowledge needs, learning needs met. They don't care that she's not across the street. And then this last BCG study, I'll just read this. At the most basic level, online connections are a revolution of, by, and for women. The internet offers women education, better ways to nurture themselves and their families, increased success as executives and entrepreneurs, higher earnings, and better ways to manage and leverage their accumulating wealth. And I think that is the big upside for women who are using internet. If you give me your card, I will send you my thematic research, and I have some copies. We also did a big piece on engagement the week, but I do monthly reports on thematic stuff having to do online. So we did one on engagement, and then we leveraged that when we noticed all the women into the women's stuff that's not really being done on Wall Street anywhere. So I will take questions now. I think we have a little bit of time. I kind of blew through those slides. Oh yeah, so I got 10 minutes for questions. Any questions? Lynn, I'm sure you have a question. Anything you want to know about this work?
With this information, how would you, if you're a publisher, how do you use this information to help monetize your site?
I mean, I guess what I'd say is that time is fixed. And so if I was trying to create content on the web, I would target women. I would target mothers under the age of 34 that are controlling 100% of their income, and I would try to grow with them. So if I was a publisher, I'd be really careful about being sure that I understood the economic consequences, because you need 4 times as many men to get the same spending power as one woman. And if she selects you, she'll stay longer and she'll market your site for you. She's going to become your best advocate. So I just think there's a lot of power in being sites and apps that target women and not men, I would say. I mean, that's how I would use it. That's how I would use the data. What else? Anything else people are interested in or fascinated by or surprised by? Yes, sir. Oh.
So what are the big generational differences that you see among women and their purchasing power? I understand in terms of the responsibility under 34, but what other trends are you seeing generationally with women?
I mean, some of the things that's really interesting you don't think of is right now only 16% of young women live in the community they grew up in. So in order to get jobs, women are going further afield, which means when they have children, they have no safety net, like their grandparents aren't there, and so that person is much more, the result of that is these women feel much more isolated, and if you're a parent, really your only alone time to think for yourself, me time that's really important to most women, basically gets delegated online. You can't leave the house. The kids are asleep upstairs. You don't have a partner with you. So one of the things we see generationally is this I would call it fear, this need for security. You know, what happens if something goes wrong is a really driving force as you get more and more women living alone with their kids. And then this me time. How do you satisfy me time, but I can't go out to a bar. I can't leave the house because I've got kids sleeping upstairs. So bringing that kind of community camaraderie, like all these games that I play in-house, is great for them because they feel like they're being competitive and they're talking and they're interacting around a purpose or a topic. I mean, that's one way. And I think the younger you go, if you go to my 15-year-old girl, I mean, they just got a digital lifestyle, right? I mean, they really are comfortable doing 4 things at once, all of them kind of interactive and social. And you take her phone away from her, and literally she can do nothing until she finds it. It's complete brain, I have to find my phone, I have to find my phone. So she breaks out in a sweat. She's like addicted to her smartphone. So I would say that's a difference. But I don't have good data on that. You know, I don't have good data on generational stuff. ComScore has great data on generational behavior shifts. Woo, it's a bright light. What else? Oh, Lynn again.
Yeah. To answer that about the generational, when you consider that, as the data just here has shown, that women control more spending, and that's only growing. And then you consider the fact that boomer women are actually the most powerful segment out there because A, they control their money, B, like it or not, guys, women live longer than men, and so they've got control of all that money. So those are some of those, even if you look at, there's some sites out there like Vibrant Nation that really focus on women. I think it's 40 or 50 plus. More Magazine has a site out there, even the AARP sites, and they do have some segments just for women because of the amazing financial power that boomer women have. So there's another segment, too, that you can really focus on.
Right. And then the question is, how do those young girls spend money when they're the boomers' age? How do they spend it differently is kind of where you want to be, because that's the tide that's growing. What else? Yes, ma'am. You want my mic? There you go.
Hi. Well, for those men who have sole custody of their kids, are you seeing some of the same attributes of spending a lot of time online, or not so much?
No, we're really not. I mean, I get that they would control 100% of the purchasing power for them and their kids. You know, a lot of men, how many men in this room love to shop? Like no one, like not one. Okay, there's a guy back there. Thank you. Thank you for being the exception that proves the rule. Woohoo! I want to marry him so we can, whenever I come home with a bill, my husband says, I haven't spent money in a month. I want to marry him. So, you know, what I would say is men don't love to shop. They don't take great pleasure out of it. There's nothing I like more than going out with my girls to the stores and just spending time in the mall. It's like a social, we eat, we shop, we think it's fun. A man is like, get away from me. So I don't really think men's behavior changes just because they have kids in the house. I do think they have the power to spend all the money. I think that's fair, but I bet they spend on different things, maybe bigger TVs and cool stereo systems and security alarms. They love that, like hardware. My husband decorated our house, and he says, it's done, and I came home, and there was no curtains and no couches. He says, I don't do soft stuff. I said, but is it done, really, with no furniture? And he's like, it's done as far as I'm concerned. There's a big screen TV, and we've got an awesome sound system. I said, okay, then. So I just think men's shopping habits are different regardless of whether they have custody for the kids in their house. Yes, sir. Let me share my mic with you. Sorry. I'm supposed to be using that one up there, so it's really your mic.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you mentioned, I think, the second category where women spend the most time was casual games. I was wondering if you can talk about how to reach out to the influencers, because from what you mentioned also is, you know, you're mostly there because your friends are there. I mean, not to say that you're not enjoying the game, but your friends are there. Are your friends influencing you, the game that you start, and if so, how do you think is the best way to reach those influencers for casual games?
In terms of making money or just getting driving usage?
Both.
Well, you know, they make it, this Zynga company, right, which is now doing another share offering, makes it look so easy, but I play, let's see, these are Zynga, here's the following Zynga games. I play Words with Friends, I play Scramble with Friends, and I play Hang-In with Friends, all of which are Zynga games. And the other game I play is, if you have, I'm in a word business, I publish a lot of words, so I'm good at Scrabble and word games, okay. But there are plenty of girlfriends that get sick of me beating them at those word games. So there's a game that is not a Zynga game called Draw Something. Okay, draw something, right? And all my friends kick my butt at this because it all looks like a blob to them when I draw anything. I'm a horrible drawer. They can never guess my words. I don't know what their problem is, but anyway, so they kick my ass in that one. It's not a Zynga game. So there's 100 things. I'm like, I wish it had different widths, and I wish it had more colors, and I wish I had a bigger screen, and like I have so many complaints about this game, so I don't use it as much. I literally do draw with friends, not only because I lose all the time, okay, but because it's just so cumbersome, and I just want Zynga to come out with their version that's better, because they will. They'll figure out, and there's no chat. I can't trash talk with my friends on, like, that was a stupid picture. I mean, I can't have her giving me feedback. So the point is that in order to drive engagement, you actually have to have a product that's engaging. So Draw with Friends is a suboptimal product to me today. I do believe Zynga, I'd be shocked if Zynga didn't have some kind of way to chat with it, which would make it more engaging for me, because I do draw crap, and they should be able to say, Laura, that was just a crappy drawing, and I should be able to laugh about that, and we should be able to make jokes. So I don't know, reaching influencers, the first thing you gotta have, the fulcrum asset, is you must have engagement. You must have a product that people wanna use, and then to reach me, the only way to reach me, so the way they monetize at Zynga is I had 4 games going on my free Zynga Words with Friends, and I got sick of the ads. Like, every time you move, and there's 20 moves a game, they threw you an ad. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I went and I paid the $4, and now I put everybody new on the paid app. And if they raised it to 10, I'd do that. I mean, and if they gave me a premium, I'd do that, because I play with so many people that I think that's the better monetization. And I suppose I'm an influencer, but I don't tell my girlfriends, go pay for the app. I just don't get ads. So, you know, I'm a heavy user of Words with Friends, but I don't know that I'm an influencer other than, like, my mom. I'm like, Mom, you gotta be on Words with Friends. I gotta kick your butt at some Scrabble. She's like, I can't figure out how to download it. Like, are you kidding me? It's one button. I'm like, okay, Mom, on Easter, I'll download it for you. But I'm not gonna influence her to go pay $4 to, you know? So I don't know if that's I don't know if reaching influencers over a casual game is a reasonable goal and objective. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I've actually never thought about the question. Let me think about it some more. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for you.
Of course.
So what would make you an influencer? What if you paid Zynga $10 and then you got $1 for everybody that you referred, or you got some sort of points, or is there any compensation that would, something like a frequent flyer thing that would incentivize you to be a referrer?
You know, so again, I live in the city, work on Wall Street. I have 3 kids, and I travel like a maniac. So the answer is absolutely not. There's no amount of money you could give me that would values my time. My time is worth $1,000 an hour. So there's no amount of money they could give me. But, you know, I will engage. You know, it's a great way. My sister's in Australia. She moves once in the morning when she wakes up. She moves once in the night when I wake up. We trash talk. I move one. So that's a great way to stay connected to your sister that normally you got an email, you got a call from her once a month. Cool, efficient. So, but that isn't a time-based thing. You see how it's kind of reconnecting in a very time-efficient way with somebody you love? So I'm not looking for a revenue stream. I'm not going to become an influencer. They can't pay me enough money. But frankly, they couldn't, you know, if they said you had to pay $100 to Zynga to talk to your sister like this, I'd do it. Because that's valuable to me, connecting with my sister who lives in Australia. Anything else? Yes, sir.
What are some of the biggest mistakes marketers make when reaching out to women, especially if they aren't women?
Especially if they aren't women. Oh, wow. You know what? I need a girl to answer this. I'm totally unqualified. Does anybody have answers to this? What's that about the